What a smart woman.
Yeah. Tim, do you mind covering the hearing?
Sure has it.
We good to go? Good afternoon, tell me when you're ready.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
We're good to go. You're live?
Yeah.
Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. My name is Russ Genzel. I'm an attorney with Harris Beach. Normally you see Heather, who's traveling on her way back from North Carolina. So I'm covering the hearing. We have members of the board here. This is for the Southworks public hearing. I will take a moment to briefly read the notice. And if to the extent you haven't signed in and you would like to speak, we would ask that you do so. Once I read the hearing, I think Rob Lewis from the company is going to give a short presentation. And then we'll open it up to the floor for public comment. As per protocol, the time limit is 3 minutes, and we would ask there are a number of people here that that be respected so everyone can have their opportunity to speak. So I'll take a brief moment just to remind everyone why we're here, and I'll read the hearing parts of it anyway. Notice is given that a public hearing pursuant to Article 18A of the New York State General Municipal Law will be held by the Tompkins County IDA on September 30, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. at the Town Ithaca Town Hall, which is where we are, in connection with the Shift Chainworks Owner 1 LLC project, which is described in the notice as well as the application that is available on the IDA's website. And I actually have a number of hard copies if anyone would like to take one with them. The purpose of the hearing is to, as I mentioned, receive comments from the public, which will be presented to the board. We did receive a number of written comments, which will also be made part of the record and presented to the board before any action or considerations taken by the board. The agency will acquire title to or a leasehold interest in the facility, as well as the equipment in connection with the facility, and lease the facility back to the company. The agency contemplates that it will provide financial assistance to the company in the form of an exemption from all New York State and local sales and use taxes with respect to the qualifying personal property included within the facility or used in the acquisition, construction, and or equipping of the facility. A partial abatement from, or exemption, excuse me, from the mortgage recording tax and real property tax abatement structured under an agreement or agreements between the company and the agency regarding payments in lieu of real property taxes for the benefit of each of the affected tax jurisdictions. The real property tax abatement in this instance is contemplated to deviate from the agency's uniform exemption tax policy. A representative of the agency and myself, and there are, as I mentioned, numerous board members and staff here, will be at the public hearing to hear and accept written and oral comments from all interested parties in favor of or opposed or otherwise relevant to the proposed financial assistance. We're streaming it live, and as I mentioned, all of the written comments that we've received to date, I think we just got one recently, will be made part of the record that will be shared with the board. So I don't know, do you have the list of parties that, oh, I'm sorry. Rob wanted to have to say a few words, I believe.
Great, thank you very much. First off, we are very excited to be here to present the Southworks project today. We've been advised to keep this brief, as I know that county legislators have a budget meeting to get to, so we will do so. But I do want to take a moment to introduce the members of the team that are here with us today. So there are 4 entities involved with this project as partners. There's Shift Capital. I work for Shift Capital, as does Sarah Barden next to me. Also with us today from Shift is Greg DeFabio. L Enterprises, many of you know David Lubin. He is the local partner on this project. He's been nursing this along for more than a decade to get it to where we are today, help get this to a place where we can start to build something and do something. Also with us via Zoom is Nina Lynch of Xylem Projects. And then here with us today is Melissa Sukodolski of USC Builds. Really strong team. We've got Shift Capital, who's a mission-driven developer out of New York City, out of Philadelphia, excuse me. L Enterprises, who's of course here in Ithaca, Xylem Projects, a mission-driven developer out of New York City, and then USC Builds out of Rochester with an extensive workforce development and contracting background. And this is what we're trying to do. We have a very large site. It's 95 acres, 32 of which are really developable. A great deal of which will remain in a natural condition. There's a lot that's, per our GEIS, our environmental, too sloped for us to do much with, and that will be preserved. We also have more than 800,000 square feet of existing buildings that we are adaptively reusing in a mix of uses. So we've got retail, residential, commercial, industrial, a real neighborhood with a real functional mix that we're very excited about. And it's taken us, as mentioned previously, a great deal of time to get where we are today. So this looks like it starts in 2018. Realistically, this started in 2011. I'll say that I first came across the project in 2014 as a member of the planning board when we were lead agency as the city of Ithaca, taking this through its environmental review process. I did not, of course, work for Shift Capital at this time. I didn't have any inkling that I was ever going to be on this side of the table. I was working on the review and making sure that things were as they should be, and we were getting a project that met Ithaca's needs and was appropriately safe and appropriately reviewed. It's really exciting to having seen this project from that side to now be on this side and be involved with bringing this home. And this is what we're trying to do. You'll see here on the map 4 sub areas. There's the chainway, that's that historic fabric, the industrial buildings built between 1906 and 1970 that are going to include a mix of uses from residential to retail to recreation to industrial to office, tech incubator. I mean, a real functional mix that works for Ithaca's economy and Ithaca's communities. Around that, you have 3 sub areas, the woods, which is the farthest into the town. That'll be new construction. And our first project there, we expect to be affordable housing that we're pursuing with our partner, Beacon Communities. The hills, which is uphill from the historical fabric. And then the gateway, which is the part closest to the city or furthest into the city side of the site, where in addition to some residential development, we're going to have a community building and the gateway trailhead, which is going to activate the gateway trail, which stretches along the downhill edge of the site and is going to connect the city and town's trail network from the lake through all the 4 state parks that are connected to our city here. And this is the type of mix we're going to. I've talked a couple times about what we're trying to accomplish in terms of the mix of the uses. And this is a little bit about how we're trying to get there and what our priorities are in terms of delivering key benefits to our community. Of course, there's the environmental remediation that's been performed over the past decade, but there's also significant work on transportation across the site, making sure we use these historic buildings effectively in our adaptive reuse, and making sure that the housing and businesses that we attract to this site work for our community. And I'm going to turn it over to Sarah here for the leasing interest, as she's been heading up leasing.
Yeah, we have a lot of excitement in the site. We see a variety of different types of uses and industries who want to come and locate at Southworks. Some of those are local businesses that are interested in growing. Their current spaces can't meet their needs. We don't have existing stock elsewhere in our community for them to lease those spaces. And so they're considering Southworks as a way to, grow on their local success. And then some of the businesses that are interested in locating at Southworks are from, in the region, and they're interested in bringing a service or a product here to our community that doesn't yet exist. And you can see from the list that we have, we've had conversations with a construction material supplier, with a coffee roaster, an antique mall, various startups coming out of the incubators throughout the southern tier, multiple different indoor recreation providers from racket sports to rock climbing, a daycare provider, which we've signed an LOI with and will be one of our first projects, as well as a construction incubator with job training and job placement, so folks can access career pathways to the construction that's happening on the site. And that will also be in one of the first buildings to come online.
And then we already mentioned the Woods, which is the piece furthest into the town. It's entitled for 450 units as a whole. The first piece of which is this 68-unit affordable development that we are undertaking with Beacon Communities. We submitted an HCR application just a couple weeks ago to help move that along, and we are excited to move into next steps on that and the other pieces of the woods to really bring a real mixed income approach to housing here. And that brings us to project benefits. Now, I'll say I used to have a version of this slide where the numbers were all bigger because we had our own independent consultant do a set of numbers. Then the IDA had their independent consultant do a set of numbers, which is the numbers you're looking at here. And I've heard from some places that there may be appetite to look at it again with a different analysis. Whatever we decide with the impact numbers, it's never going to be exactly correct. And we don't really have a point of view too much on the right report or right model for that. We are not focused on the report, we're focused on the project because that is what we can deliver. And we are very excited about what this project can deliver to Ithaca and to our community. With that, we're very excited. Oh, sorry.
Just, I think one thing to note is that currently, as it stands, this building has been vacant for over a decade. And we're really excited to activate it and bring it back to a community use and actually bring in even more folks than whoever had a chance to engage with it. And with that comes an increased tax revenue that will not happen if the project doesn't happen. So right now, if it stays as is, we're looking at about $2 million in tax revenue over 20 years. But if we're able to move forward with the Southworks project, that brings us to about $44 million in tax revenue with the tax abatement. So that's just the baseline numbers that we're looking at today.
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate you bringing that back up because that is a big piece of why we're here. We're here to hear from you, the community, and hear your perspectives on what we're trying to accomplish as we look for the IDA to help us with this tax abatement so we can move forward.
And I guess the last thing I'll add is that we're very interested in collaboration. So if there's something that you hope to see at Southworks, but you haven't seen it on the website or you haven't seen it in the documents, we're not building this on spec. We're not building this and hoping that people will come and fill in the spaces. We're building it to the needs of our community, to the tenants who want to be here, to the folks who want to come and do art and placemaking and participate in natural spaces and community gatherings. So just because it hasn't been written yet doesn't mean it can't happen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that does it for us.
So with that, thank you very much. If we'll probably, there's been no order other than people that signed up first. And again, we would ask that you limit it to 3 minutes. To the extent you have a comment that's already been made or a question that's already been asked, there's no reason to be repetitive. I think there's obviously a number of people that would make comments. So with that, sure, I'll take it over. Yeah, so I was going to give you the mic.
Oh, and there.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Okay, we'll call our first speaker, Teresa Alt of 206 Eddy Street.
And I'm afraid I have never seen a microphone like this before, so you're going to have to tell me how to use it.
It's on.
It's, no, I see it's on, but
We can hear you.
you can hear me. Fine, good. Okay, so yes, Teresa Alt, City of Ithaca. Stop trying to sell us Southworks as one huge project. That can be the vision, but let's deal with it piece by piece. I add my voice to many others addressing how bad even the revised economic and fiscal impact analysis is. No word about how this huge project will burden city and town services, maintaining roads, supplying water, treating wastewater, policing. Nothing about the children in the new families moving in who will attend ICSD schools. The study suggests incomes in retail and clerical work that sound impossibly high to me. And I know these fields. They must have used New York City numbers. The study's table 5 spending baskets are weird. They don't include rent or taxes, but they are not really about discretionary spending because they include health care. More odd assumptions. Do people really spend more on entertainment than on healthcare? Why is transportation so high? Maybe because there is no plan to insist on a good grocery store on the site. Will South Hill continue to be a food desert? Will every family need a car to buy groceries? What a lost opportunity. What a shameful waste of fossil fuels. I suggest starting immediately with 3 steps. Reuse buildings already there. First, for training and construction skills, yes. They are needed for the rest of the project and probably eligible for a tax abatement. Second, for retail space for a large grocery store or small supermarket, which legally is not eligible for a tax abatement. Don't worry that no one will shop there till the housing is built. South Hill is a food desert, but many people already live on South Hill. Third, build the affordable housing. Yes, that is what is most needed in the community, and it can get a tax abatement. So stop trying to sell us Southworks as one huge project. That can be the vision, but let's deal with it piece by piece.
Mills Brown.
Thank you. On the whole, the Southworks project looks like a useful project, but the application leaves some questions open. I've been in touch with Ian Greer, the director of the co-lab at the Industrial and Labor Relations School at Cornell. He regrets that he cannot be here to speak in person. He clarified to me that the estimates of employment and economic impact are based on a particular proprietary computer program doing input-output analysis. And input-output analysis can give quite different results depending on what estimated figures you feed into it. Not to say garbage in, garbage out, but really rough guess in, rough guess out. In the application, in one place it says 1,076 construction jobs. Another place seems to cite 3,745 jobs. 1,076 is more than the number of construction workers in our county. And 3,745 is not much less than the total number of construction workers in our 7 neighboring counties, 4,000 and some. If we take this literally, it'll mean a big shortage of workers while this is going on. As things are now, my wife and I have been waiting months and months for somebody to come and fix our ceiling. But we wonder if even 1,076 people will be employed in construction all through the 15-year construction period. More likely, members of one trade will be taken on for short periods. Members of another trade will be temporary at other times. So there won't be 1,076 people working constantly for 15 years. So the conclusion is that your board should look carefully at the estimates before passing judgment. There is not much in the estimates about what particular companies will be interested in setting up shop in the newly available buildings. The attitude seems to be, if we build it, they will come. Another question I have from reading the application, do I understand correctly that as each part of the construction gets finished, it will be given a further 20-year abatement, decreasing gradually from 90% down to 10%? It sounds as if the city and the town and the county won't be getting much in tax payments for many, many years into the future. Thank you for your kind attention.
What do you have left
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Greg Hartz. I live in the village of Lansing and pleased to be here this afternoon just to say a few words on behalf of the Southworks development. I've lived in Ithaca most of my life. I'm an Ithaca High School alum, a Cornell alum, and I made my career here in banking mostly. I retired last year as president of Tompkins Trust Company and Tompkins Community Bank. And I just want to say that I think that what we have here is a very unique opportunity to make a very positive, lasting impact on this community. And I think we have to, Ithaca has always been a community that is forward-looking, focused on doing the right thing, and focused on doing things that serve everyone in the community as best possible. I think when you look at this site, we talked about the 100+ year history of the site. That's history, and it served its purpose when it was it had a different use. And I think we have an opportunity here to help the developers, of which it's not like there's a long line of people waiting to develop this site. Very complicated, very expensive, and the developers have already put a lot of their own resources into this project. So this tax abatement simply reduces the impact of that. You heard the numbers, the long-term significant benefit just from the tax base, not to mention repurposing this old facility that I think would be a shining example for others in the state if we were to do this. So thank you all for your time. I know your jobs. It's great that you do this and your volunteers, and it's not always easy. So thanks for the hard decision you have to make, and I would be strongly in favor. Thank you.
Jill Tripp, 112 First Street.
On the other hand, I'm a 40-year resident of Ithaca. I own a home on First Street in Ithaca's north side. I'm here to speak to you because I've received my school tax bill today, and because as a member of the Ithaca City School District School Board, I have become acutely aware lately of where tax money comes from and where it goes. I am speaking for myself, not in any way as a representative of the school board at this point. The proposed tax abatement for the Southworks project seems excessive and ill-advised. In looking over tax abatements granted over the last 20 years in our community, I see that tens of millions of dollars have been diverted from investment in our schools to assist in the development of projects of dubious value. For a long time, I accepted the common wisdom that development is beneficial, if only because it lessened the tax burden on other property owners. I now believe this is a fallacy. Development and progress are not synonymous. The tax abatement proposal for the Southworks project will harm the school district by taking away desperately needed revenue and by adding many new students to a district ill-prepared to cope with an influx of hundreds of students who will live in this much praised new neighborhood. I urge this board to gather more information about the true costs of this development to our community and to our schools. Thank you.
Hi. I will quote the Ithaca Voice right now because, so first I'm in opposition of the IDA. This project would not be possible without the community's investment. And currently, I've lived in this community for a very long time. I grew up here, so when I was 5, I'm 45 now. So, but I have a business here and I do want responsible development. Currently, this will need the attention of local code officers and infrastructure we just don't have. In July, the There was a report that we are actually subcontracting our waste management services because we can't retain employees because we can't pay them enough. We had problems with transportation. The day the taxes came out, I got many phone calls of people didn't know how they were gonna pay their bills, how they're gonna get groceries, how they pay their utility bills. We are strained right now, and although development would be fabulous, and having another neighborhood on South Hill would be excellent, why do we have to pick the most expensive place to develop? Because of the views, I get it. However, we have to put our people, our community members first. So oxygen, put the oxygen on first, get us stable. Without a good foundation, we can't have a successful community. And I really would suggest to the board to send out a survey, because there've been several IDAs in the past 5 years that have been given out, and see what the success rate is, meaning how does the community feel about the consequences of those IDAs being granted? Do we feel like we are in a better position financially, or do we feel like we are overwhelmed? And if the answer comes back that we are overwhelmed, all it is a pause. Unfortunately, I am all for development. I would love to support local developers, because I feel unfair treatment if we don't give the same courtesy to a small local developer as we do to a big developer to build our community. So that's all I have to say, but opposition.
When I was town supervisor of the town of Ithaca, I worked with David Lubin on this project, and it was called Chainworks. And in some respects, I'm glad it's taken over a decade to get to this point, because certain concepts like sustainability and mixed-use development have come into the play now, where it was a tough sell back then. So I think that's a very good thing with this project. Now, from what I read, 20% of the housing is going to be affordable. And if that means low income, that's a good thing. But we need a lot more worker housing in this community. There's been gentrification going on in the town of Ithaca and the city of Ithaca now for decades. And the folks who are going to work at Southworks should be able to live there. And so I would suggest adding another 30% of the housing be dedicated to worker housing. That would also supply some workers for the restaurants and hotels downtown, and even adjunct professors at Ithaca College. We desperately need more worker housing. And this will also reduce commuters coming into Tompkins County. We have 11,000 or more commuters a day coming into Tompkins County to work. And that clogs up our roads. It puts a lot of pressure on the town and the city residents who are already here. And so we need to reduce that traffic by increasing worker housing. The cost to municipalities has already been mentioned, so I won't go through that list again. But there has been some research on tax abatements that has said that developers don't make their decisions based on tax abatements. If people want to throw money at them, fine, they'll take it. But they don't make their decisions based on that. So I would take any tax abatement and put it towards making sure we get that affordable housing, make sure we get that worker housing, not just to pad the bottom line of the developers. Thank you.
Thanks. Good afternoon. In many ways, as you've heard me say before, I think this is a great project. But I urge you to wait to vote on the abatement for the project until you have better information to inform your decision. In other words, in contrast to what Rob said, I'd suggest you do focus on the report. The independent financial and economic assessments, as well as the abatement schedule, were poorly done and not up to the task of being used as the basis for your decision. This, as you know, I've discussed with my colleague, Cornell Professor Karen Donahue, in an editorial in the Ithaca Times this week. The economic impact report put together by Camorra Associates contained many poor assumptions, and experts I've asked about it suggest it looks more like an undergraduate student project than one completed by an expert in the field. One glaring aspect of this is the inability to factor in the effects of building over an extended period of time. The reports are neither methodologically nor theoretically defensible. And yes, I realize Camorra Associates has written reports for agencies all over the state, but that evidence hasn't paid off, that experience rather hasn't paid off in the work they've done for us. Moreover, their independent assessments use employment and other data drawn from a report commissioned by the developer from ESI Consult Solutions, a firm they've worked with in the past. Don't need me to tell you, independent assessments are meant to be independent and question statements made by the developers, not accept them as truth. Perhaps equally galling is that the cost-benefit analysis doesn't include a prediction of the cost to the city, town, school district, and county that will accompany the building of a full-scale mixed-use neighborhood. It's just a benefit report, and I could have sworn this was pointed out when the draft version was reviewed by the board. We deserve an assessment of the costs as well. The taxing jurisdictions need to plan for the future before being able to decide whether the project will work for them either as is or in modified form. The project should not move forward without one. As discussed in the document I sent you earlier, the abatement schedule drawn up for the project is also misguided and I'd suggest misleading. The abatement for the entire development will not end in 20 years, and the full tax amount will not be available for the abatement to be abated in the first year. Moreover, the abatements are likely to phase in over the 15 years of this construction, and we could all be living with the latter portion of them 35 years from now. The amounts of property tax abated too are likely to be much greater, at least 15% and likely more. And the promised average tax collection will not be realized for more than a decade, the 2.3 million figure she discussed. We need better information than this to draw database conclusions as to which elements of the project should receive an abatement. In closing, I urge the board to be responsible and act in the best interest of the people that you represent. Wait for that better data. We count on you to act as if you have a fiduciary duty and not tolerate anything less than you truly need as decision makers. I recognize the developers have a schedule and winter is looming, which isn't a great time for this, but there's no reason to make a rash decision without full and accurate due diligence. Find someone to do it on an advanced schedule if necessary. Take the project and the IDA in hand, O board, thou art, and wait to decide until you have a real foundation on which to do so. Thank you.
Change the hot seat. Good afternoon. I'm Susan Holland. I'm the Executive Director for Historic Ithaca, and I'm representing Historic Ithaca. I'm also a member of, I also live in Tompkins County. I'm glad to be able to express our support for the request for the Southworks project for a pilot as an investment in this project and for this opportunity. There are a myriad of reasons to support it, but I'm only going to talk about 5 specific reasons from our viewpoint and in keeping with our mission and the work that we do in the community. Number 1 would be adaptive reuse. Southworks has proposed to use 800,000 square feet of space that needs infrastructure and building upgrades, rehabilitation, restoration, and all the parts of a project that we can imagine for spaces that have been vacant from economic activity for approximately 20 years. Large-scale investment is needed, and the pilot will help the economics of the project, but it's not the whole thing. Other sources have been garnered, as we've seen in most of their literature, and there'll be more financial resources will have to be and will be garnered as well. The sustainability preservation aspect of existing building stock is one of the most sustainable things that we can do. The Southworks project has sustainability at the core. Having the chance for the IDA, the town and the city of Ithaca to make that investment in the future of our building stock and our climate is, while no small measure, needed and necessary. Great investment, which makes sense economically. From the IDA and other municipal sources, the new building projects in our community have received pilots, property tax abatements, and the like. Southworks actually matches the community benefits that most of us prioritize in our work and our lives. Quite frankly, improving buildings that have high visibility, to everyone everywhere, providing much needed housing in this community, providing provisions for childcare, and providing important training and jobs where they are so needed. Most people in this community will be able to partake in some way of these tangible benefits, whether directly or indirectly. A second investment also, which makes sense economically, is Southworks' commitment to workforce development and the construction ecosystem. I don't know if you know this, but our organization actually has been doing workforce development for 13 years with young adults with barriers to employment. We're part of a network of partners. Some of us are connected in career pathways, and together we're making a huge difference in the lives of others. This project will provide more job opportunities, entryways for those trainees for real-world experiences, and to allow historically underrepresented people much more access to those jobs, all in a large effort to eradicate structural poverty very present in our community and give access at last. And this also provides housing. I actually have a housing background. For all of us, I'm just reiterating a point that most of us here in Tompkins County talk about, work towards, and that's the need for more housing. I know I'm singing to the choir here, but we need mixed income housing, affordable housing, and this project will provide some of that. And I think there is workforce housing included in that, which is a big need, and also not generally funded by HUD. So it'll be very interesting to get that together. So the IDA's commitment and support for this project will raise us all up, restore what needs to be restored, and will be a great addition and focal point in our community. Therefore, Historic Ithaca lends their full support to Southworks' request to the IDA in the town and city of Ithaca. Thanks for the opportunity to give our views. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, Huntington Lake.
I'm going to make some observations which are probably wrong and ask some questions which cannot be answered. I'm looking at this project and I'm comparing it to like the size of the Ithaca College campus. Is that reasonable? So about how many additional 1,000 people are going to be living and working in this project when it's like completed? More or less, you know. Like, no, okay, no answer. Right. What kind of traffic studies have been done? In other words, the impact on the traffic along Danby Road, Aurora Street. You got like 3 entrances to this place on Danby Road. Are they going to have traffic lights? They're going to widen Danby Road. And what is there some kind of study that one can look at to see the traffic impact? Where can one see this study? Oh, we can't answer questions. Okay. Well, I'm here doing the wrong thing, asking questions. Okay. So I mean, these are minor concerns, you know, like looking at traffic on Aurora Street. I mean, around 5 o'clock or so, traffic is backed up on Prospect Street all the way from Cayuga all the way up to Aurora Street. You can't get on. It might take you 5 minutes to get from Aurora down to Cayuga. Now we got an additional, guessing, several thousand people living and working in this Southworks campus. I mean, that's going to impact traffic, especially at peak times. I mean, I'm just kind of curious about that, so. Thanks, really, since I'm not going to get answers, at least I can express that. And is this campus, is it going to have like its own police force like Ithaca College? I mean, it's big. Hmm? Yeah. I mean, Ithaca College has its own police force, residences of all kinds, businesses of all kinds, industry. I mean, it's big enough. So that's an unanswerable here. So these are thoughts. Thank you so much. I appreciate you listening. That's a great project, it's gonna have a tremendous impact, but what are some of them? Thanks. Thank you.
My name is Marnie Kirch-Kessner. My grandson is the 9th generation on my father's side. My father worked at Morris Chain, and my grandmother lived at 515 South Buga Street. And I would watch the people leaving Morris Chain with their lunch boxes at 3 o'clock after I went up there from school. I frankly, fine, develop it, but why ask the taxpayers to subsidize it? I was at a meeting recently where I was talking about my grandson's opportunity to own a home in Tompkins County, being he is the 9th generation. Well, someone told me he should look in Elmira. Is that what all of this development, is that the benefit to me as someone who's lived here forever? That's the benefit? My grandson can't afford to stay. All of these benefits, what is the cost? At 2 o'clock, tried to pick up my grandson from South Hill where he attends. Traffic is, even though the school district tried to redo the wait line to pick children up, traffic is already backed up on Aurora Street. So Mr. Jones, I forget how you framed it, he was supposed to, considerations are incredibly valid. There are costs and but then I'm supposed to subsidize all of these supposed opportunities. How many of these projects have you already given significant tax breaks to? What is the math on how much benefit I as a taxpayer have received from these projects? I no longer come downtown because the big buildings scare me and I can't figure out the parking system. Is that a benefit to me? I understand how there's tremendous benefits in data collection and you can, do all sorts of wonderful wizardry with your computers and your data. But my friends, we see no benefits. Now, I understand my tax dollars have done a huge amount already to abate that, the pollution from that site, because I also have peers that grew up on Aurora Street who are deceased from cancer because of the toxicity of that site. And to hear everyone say, oh, there are all of these glorious benefits. Yes, but what are the costs? Thank you. I have to go to another.
Hello, thank you for having this hearing today. I'm speaking today to voice my opposition to the proposed $85 million tax abatement for Chainworks mixed-use development. Why? Well, for one, I walked by nearly a dozen or more vacancies on the commons. Perhaps one of them would be a great childcare commercial opportunity for small business. While I understand the need for development and economic growth, subsidizing developer profits through tax abatement is not in our community's best interests. We've seen this pattern before with developments like City Center. Despite the promises made, clawback protocols were never enforced when the abated property changed hands. And City Center sold for nearly 50% over its assessed value. None of the tax abatement was reclaimed during the sale, meaning our community missed out on potential funding for vital public services such as schools, infrastructure, and social programs during COVID that would have deeply impacted children, the aging and infirm, and all of those who have a hand in their care in our community. The reality is tax abatements often lack accountability and enforcement measures needed to protect public funds. Once incentives are granted, it's proven near impossible to recover our investment if agreements are changed or when properties are sold for profit. Subsidizing developers in this manner only enriches them while we bear the long-term costs. Instead of millions of dollars in tax breaks, we should be investing in our community directly. We need to maintain manufacturing opportunities here to create more well-paying jobs, especially for low-skilled workers. I want to echo what retired Tompkins County Community Bank President Greg Hart shared. We have a unique opportunity, for sure we do. Just recently, one of the largest saline manufacturers, Baxter Healthcare, was destroyed in Hurricane Helene. This leaves a crucial gap in the U.S. medical supply chain. This presents a real opportunity to bring a meaningful opportunity to our community. Oh my God, go away phone, sorry. Who are you? Hanging up now. What is that all about? It's fucking crazy, pardon my language. This presents a real opportunity to bring meaningful employment and stability to our area while addressing an urgent national need. With a port worker strike imminently looming, we need more national manufacturing, and we have a manufacturing site. I urge you to reject this tax abatement and instead prioritize transparent, accountable policies that genuinely serve the people of our community, our region, our state, and our nation. Let's focus on building an economy that benefits all of us, not just a handful of developers. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. I'm Reba McCutcheon of Ithaca City. I own several properties in the area. I'm a small landowner. And I'm also a licensed real estate professional. I had the opportunity to tour Southworks with a bunch of my colleagues, and we're excited. We are excited. So I just jotted down a few notes. New housing. Yes, please. We have outgrown our housing. When my clients want to look at Fall Creek, I say, yes, they're gorgeous homes, and a lot of them are older than Ezra. So please, some new housing. The adaptive reuse, gosh, isn't that what Ithaca is about? To be environmentally friendly, to be environmentally conscious. I love it. And the environmental cleanup that has already taken place on the site has helped all of us. A thing my clients struggle with a lot is daycare. Having another daycare facility on the South Hill would be phenomenal. And I talked to the folks at Southworks saying, great, how large can you make it? I think that working with Southworks is exactly that. It's working with. Here is a bunch of businesses working together who want to work and engage with our community to customize our needs and our wants. South Hill is a food desert. Great. They're looking, I mean, I think that Sarah and Rob are getting some great information about, okay, how else can they customize? So I think we have a wonderful opportunity. I think Ithaca needs Southworks, and to your point, it's hard to buy a house, right? Your grandson. I was lucky enough to get a check from my parents when I bought my first house. I didn't need it, but oh my gosh, did that help? And that little leg up can really get a project underway. Home ownership has been, dubbed the American dream. And if we can, a little leg up help someone own a home, gosh, wouldn't a little leg up that will come back, wouldn't that be wonderful to get our friends at Southworks and our community really up and running? Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. My name is Raphael Chamberlain. I'm a second grade teacher at Northeast Elementary School in Ithaca City School District, and I'm also the vice president of the Ithaca Teachers Association. The ITA is a union of almost 600 professional educators in the Ithaca City School District. We serve as classroom teachers, subject area specialists, academic support teachers, speech and occupational therapists, counselors, social workers, and psychologists. We work with students in grades pre-K through 12 and support students across 12 school buildings. The ITA exists to prepare, organize, and support and advocate for educators so we are better able to advocate for the needs of our students and effectively provide a safe, supportive learning environment for all. As we all know, Ithaca has a need for development of safe, affordable housing for working families, and the prospect of a major project that could bring this type of housing to Ithaca is something to be excited about. As a union, we support projects that help provide our students and their families with housing. And I'm here today to urge the IDA to strongly consider the impact that the large tax abatements the developers of this project are requesting would have on our schools and our community as a whole before making a decision to grant these abatements. Some of you may remember the Ithaca City School District budget debate of last May. During the month leading up to that vote, Ithaca City School District board meetings were packed with residents worried about their tax bills. Residents shared concerns that they or those they loved would soon be priced out of the community that they call home. Many of our members felt that pain and fear. But as teachers, we know that passing the budget was crucial. We were not successful in convincing enough of our neighbors of that fact, and our schools are now operating at a $7 million deficit this year. Our students have seen their class sizes increase, have lost beloved educators, and have had to change their schedules to accommodate dissolved programs. The students and the adults who serve them are already doing a lot more with a lot less this year, and the prospects of recouping these losses in upcoming budgets are grim unless a new source of school revenue is found within our community. Additionally, we are concerned about how the location of this new development will impact the long-term organization of this Ithaca City School District. Due to the current housing trends, the only housing sectors in the Ithaca community that are still affordable to the average working family seeking to buy are the South Hill and Danby communities. This area of town has seen a significant population rise, which is currently reflected in the crowding at South Hill Elementary School. Staff who work at South Hill describe their school as bursting at the seams. Teachers are already setting up classrooms and services, spaces and closets. Lunchrooms are packed. All of this energy in a school full of children is a wonderful problem to have, but the potential to add 900 new housing units to the school's footprint without a clear plan for how to accommodate that growth and the possibility of having little to no new tax revenue to make these accommodations is a challenge that leaves us very concerned. The fact of the matter is simple. Running high quality schools isn't cheap, and the Ithaca community is committed to having high quality schools. But funding our schools primarily through the local property taxes of people who already own their homes or granting generous tax abatements is systemically unfair. Our tax base is currently tapped out and doing the best we can to support our schools. I'm simply here today to ask that the IDA consider that this project be greenlit only if it includes a clear plan for the developers to pay their fair share of the Ithaca City School District taxes throughout the entire project. Our district needs the revenue that will be generated in 15 years of construction to make the necessary changes to support this project. We simply cannot wait until these new students are knocking on our school's doors to have the money it will take to support them. Thank you for your consideration.
I am actually, I've been a neighbor of the plant for 30 years and lived fairly close to it for another 5 before that. I just wanted to say how much the factory's closure worried us, how sad it has been to see the decay of the buildings and infrastructure. our property abuts on a small lot, which has I think it might be a 30-foot wall that holds up the lower parking lot. Houses around the corner are also faced with these big walls. That parking lot is being torn apart by nature, as is the road that goes down to Cayuga Street. Buildings are obviously have been visibly deteriorating. I too feel that we have to look very carefully at tax abatements. I think in some ways in the past, they've been given far too generously, with far too few safeguards on them. But this property, it seems to me, is going to become an expense to the community if it's not to some extent developed. I love the Southworks plans, but and I know that it will produce some more traffic and some more noise in my neighborhood. But I'm getting deaf as I get older, so it's okay. I just like to say that as a neighbor, I really want something to happen there. I don't want to sell the county and the school district up the river on this one, but I really think it's a priority to get something done reasonably quickly. Thank you.
I'm Clark Young. I'm owner of Uncle Marty's Shipping Office and Cantrip Cards and Games. I'm a pretty young business owner. I've owned Cantrip for about 2 years, and I've worked for Martin Johnson for about 13 years, 6 years before I started my one business. I'm one of the people that would benefit from Southworks. I'm a local business owner that sees an opportunity to get involved and can improve my community and keep my tax dollars here. I can keep my employees' tax dollars here. I can provide them this audience that is there and the customers that would come from the other businesses that go there and support my employees. I can pay them well. I can keep them here. I'm for this. I think that it should be done reasonably and with thought, making sure that we are doing things carefully to maintain our community. But I believe that that can be done. And I think it's I'm sorry, it's my first time doing this. I'm a little nervous. I'm for it as someone who sees people like me, young business owners, that can take advantage of the situation to improve themselves, to build from the ground up like I've done with my business. So I would say continue thinking, and I'm for.
Thank you. I'm here to support the project. I have doubts about where we are at in terms of the work, the sufficient work being done in terms of the actual abatement structure. Let me share with you some thoughts. This project has the impact of building a whole new village in Tompkins County. It will eventually have more residents than any of the current designated county villages, whether you're looking at Trumansburg or you're looking at some of the other ones. It will also have an industrial and commercial economic base, unlike any previous project that I'm familiar with since I've lived here. There's a difference between putting together an industrial site or an apartment building by itself in terms of how it fits into a community. It becomes a component of the economic development of a community, but it does not have the nature of this particular project, where it in effect has within it, built into it, the generation in terms of both commercial as well as industrial as well as residential. I think it's an important aspect. It also, on one hand, it makes it more complicated, but also it really represents, in my mind, the future of how we should be thinking about urban development. Moreover, I think the tax base, depending upon how it will be structured, could by itself be large enough to separately pay for the public services needed to support such a village. Obviously, the question is, what aspects will in effect the village bring to the table that in effect will combine with the public services that on one hand the city provides and the other hand the town provides, be able to fulfill the needs of the folks there. I totally agree with some of the comments already that we need to carefully look at the nature of worker apartments and buildings and so on. And in terms of the contractual relationship between the developer, the county and city and so forth, that in effect there is equity there, but equity isn't skewed one way or the other. Part of the issue that came up for me is, and it may be totally mute, because I obviously haven't been able to dig below a certain level, is why was this viewed as one big request for tax abatement as opposed to looking at it in terms of chunking it? The other interesting question is, how will the town and city work together on this project? Because fundamentally, usually one takes the lead. In the past. For example, the Maplewood project, it was a town project and the city, went along with it. But this is also going to require a very different type of relationship, working relationship. And I'm not saying that's not doable, but what I am saying is it will require intentionally looking at this project in a different way than we've looked at projects in the past. IDA has come a long way from an industrial development agency that was designed to expand the industrial base decades ago to becoming an economic development agency overseeing a whole economic system, as this project will be. Projects that fall under the jurisdiction of both the town and the city of this magnitude haven't existed, in my knowledge, since I've lived here. There have been some great projects, big projects, but this has a very different mixed approach that at least I'm not familiar with. Oftentimes when we have these public hearings in terms of getting us a feeling for the emotional feeling of our community, they're smaller projects. We look at the pros and the cons, somebody who is within 300 feet or 500 feet or whatever, within a certain distance. And at least my experience has been in terms of communicating about this, in terms of transparency as to the level of. Okay. I would also like to point out, so few in the general public understand tax abatement as it was illustrated here today. Certainly not the benefit it brings to the actual impact on the individual taxpayer. For many, the seemingly deeply ingrained perception that it steals from the individual taxpayer by paying more property tax on one's home and gives that money as a tax break to the rich developer to make an even bigger profit. I think that's simply oversimplifying the whole thing. And I think it becomes the responsibility of an organization such as IDA, as well as other organizations similar to IDA, to help clarify that. The last thing you want to do is, as a taxpayer, feel like they're taking it out of my pocket in order to enrich the developer, and that is just too simplistic. Thank you.
I'm trying to play.